I forgot to hit start on the camera for the camera there. We are in Genesis chapter 50.
Estamos en Génesis capítulo 50.
Well, we're here at the end. Quick note: I did mention that we will be doing two, maybe three lessons coming up that on some things relating to what we've gone over and relating to this book and all. In this chapter, we see Jacob's funeral.
En este capítulo vemos el funeral de Jacob.
Joseph's brothers fear him.
El hermano de José le teme.
Joseph comforts his brothers.
José consuela a sus hermanos.
Joseph prophesies that Israel will leave Egypt.
José profetiza que Israel abandonará Egipto.
And he makes them promise to carry his bones out of Egypt.
Les hace prometer que sacarán sus huesos de Egipto.
Jacob has died. Genesis chapter 49, verse 33.
Jacob ha muerto. Génesis capítulo 49, verso 33.
And we read there, and when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people.
Y cuando acabó Jacob de dar mandamientos a sus hijos, encogió sus pies en la cama y expiró y fue reunido con sus padres.
Genesis chapter 50, verses 1 through 6.
Génesis capítulo 50, verso 1 al 6.
And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and blessed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him. For so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 60 days. And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spake unto the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes, speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die. In my grave which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan, there shalt thou bury me. Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again. And Pharaoh said, Go up, and bury thy father, according as he made thee swear.
Génesis capítulo 50, verso 1 al 6. Entonces se echó José sobre el rostro de su padre y lloró sobre él y lo besó. Y mandó José a sus siervos los médicos que embalsamasen a su padre, y los médicos embalsamaron a Israel. Y le cumplieron 40 días, porque así cumplían los días de los embalsamados, y lo lloraron los egipcios 70 días. Y pasados los días de su luto, habló José a los de la casa de Faraón, diciendo, Si he hallado ahora gracia en vuestros ojos, os ruego que habléis en oídos de Faraón, diciendo, Mi padre me hizo jurar, diciendo, He aquí que voy a morir en el sepulcro que cavé para mí en la tierra de Canaán. Ahí me sepultarás. Ruego pues que vaya yo ahora y sepulte a mi padre y volveré. Y Faraón dijo, Ve y sepulta a tu padre como él te hizo jurar.
In verse 1, we see that Joseph mourns his father.
En el versículo 1 vemos que José llora a su padre.
Joseph has his father embalmed.
José hace embalsamar a su padre.
We note here that this is not the same as how we embalm people today.
Observamos aquí que esto no es lo mismo que embalsamamos a las personas hoy en día.
We are not going to go into detail, but if you would like to know more about it, you can check out Smith's Bible Dictionary, which gives a description of it.
No vamos a entrar en detalles, pero si desea saber más al respecto, puede consultar el diccionario bíblico de Smith, que ofrece una descripción del mismo.
The International Standard Bible Encyclopedia gives some information on its origin.
La Enciclopedia Bíblica Estándar Internacional da alguna información sobre su origen.
40 days are fulfilled. It took time to carry out the process of embalming.
Se cumplen 40 días. Llevó tiempo realizar el proceso de embalsamamiento.
Apparently, the process, depending upon how wealthy the family was, apparently the process, depending upon how wealthy the family was, some it would take 70 days to perform.
Aparentemente el proceso dependerá de cuán rica fuera la familia. Algunas tardarían 70 días en realizarse.
And what I was trying to say there, and didn't word it very well, is that the length of time varied depending on how much you wanted to spend on embalming your loved one.
Dependía de cuánto querían gastar.
Joseph has Pharaoh's house speak to him to request that Joseph be allowed to carry his father up to the land of Canaan to bury him.
José hace que la casa de Faraón le hable para solicitar que se le permita llevar a su padre a la tierra de Canaán para enterrarlo.
Joseph was second only to Pharaoh, Genesis chapter 41, verses 39 through 41, and yet he was still under Pharaoh's command. He could not leave without permission.
José era el segundo después de Faraón, Génesis capítulo 41, verso 39 al 41. Y sin embargo todavía estaba bajo el mando de Faraón, no podía salir sin permiso.
Even the number two man apparently was a slave to
Oh.
Pharaoh. Pharaoh gave Joseph permission.
Faraón le dio permiso a José.
Genesis chapter 50, verses 7 through 14.
Génesis capítulo 50, versos 7 al 14.
And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph and his brethren, and his father's house, only their little ones, and their and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. Verse 9. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. And his sons did unto him according as he commanded them. For his sons carried him into the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field for a possession of a burying place of Ephron the Hittite before Mamre. And Joseph returned into Egypt, into Egypt, he and his brethren, and all that went up with him to bury his father after he had buried his father.
Génesis capítulo 50, versos 7 al 14. Entonces José subió para sepultar a su padre, y subieron con él todos los siervos de Faraón, los ancianos de su casa y todos los ancianos de la tierra de Egipto, y toda la casa de José y sus hermanos y la casa de su padre. Solamente dejaron la tierra de Gosén sus niños y sus ovejas y sus vacas. Subieron también con él carros y gente de a caballo, y se hizo un escuadrón muy grande, y llegaron hasta la era de Atad, que está al otro lado del Jordán, y endecharon ahí con grande y muy triste lamentación, y José hizo a su padre duelo por 7 días. Y viendo los moradores de la tierra, los cananeos, el llanto en la era de Atad, dijeron, llanto grande es esto de los egipcios, por esto fue llamado su nombre Abel Misraim, que está al otro lado del Jordán. Hicieron pues sus hijos con él según les había mandado, pues lo llevaron sus hijos a la tierra de Canaán y lo sepultaron en la cueva del campo de Macpela, la que había comprado Abraham con el mismo campo para heredad de sepultura de Efrón el Eteo, al oriente de Mamre. Y volvió José a Egipto, él y sus hermanos y todos los que subieron con él a sepultar a su padre, después que lo hubo sepultado.
Joseph goes to the land of Canaan to bury Jacob.
José va a la tierra de Canaán para sepultar a Jacob.
Notice who all went with him.
Observe que fueron todos con él.
Not only his family, but the servants of Pharaoh and other dignitaries.
No solo su familia, sino también los sirvientes de Faraón y otros dignatarios.
They make a great lamentation for Jacob, so much so that the Canaanites take note of this.
Hacen gran lamentación por Jacob, tanto es así que los cananeos toman nota de esto.
They bury Jacob, and Joseph and the people go back to Egypt.
Entierran a Jacob y a José y el pueblo regresa a Egipto.
Genesis 50, verses 15 through 21.
Génesis capítulo 50, verso 15 al 21.
And when Joseph's brethren saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will peradventure hate us, and will certainly requite us all the evil which we did unto him. And they sent a messenger unto Joseph, saying, Thy father did command before he died, saying, So shall ye say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee, now the trespass of thy brethren, and their sin. For they did unto thee evil, and now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of thy father. And Joseph wept when they spake unto him. And his brethren also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them.
Génesis capítulo 50, verso 15 al 21. Viendo los hermanos de José que su padre era muerto, dijeron, quizá nos aborrecerá José y nos dará el pago de todo el mal que le hicimos. Y enviaron a decir a José, tu padre mandó antes de su muerte, diciendo, así diréis a José, te ruego que perdones ahora la maldad de tus hermanos y su pecado, porque mal te trataron. Por tanto, ahora te rogamos que perdones la maldad de los siervos del Dios de tu padre. Y José lloró mientras hablaba. Vinieron también sus hermanos y se postraron delante de él y dijeron, henos aquí por siervos tuyos. Y le respondió José, no temáis, ¿acaso estoy yo en lugar de Dios? Vosotros pensasteis mal contra mí, mas Dios lo encaminó a bien para hacer lo que vemos hoy, para mantener en vida a mucho pueblo. Ahora pues no tengáis miedo, yo os sustentaré a vosotros y a vuestros hijos. Así los consoló y les habló al corazón.
Joseph's brothers are afraid of what Joseph will do to them now that their father has passed away.
Los hermanos de José tienen miedo de lo que José les hará ahora que su padre había fallecido.
They assert that Jacob had told them to tell Joseph to forgive them.
Afirman que Jacob les dijo que le dijera a José que los perdonara.
Did Jacob really tell them this?
¿Jacob realmente les dijo esto?
Possibly, or possibly they are just saying this.
Posiblemente o posiblemente solo digan esto.
We're not told anything other than what the brothers here say.
No se nos dice nada más que lo que dicen los hermanos aquí.
Note they bow to him for the 5th time.
Tenga en cuenta que se inclina ante él por quinta vez.
And by the way, you can go back and count the number of times that they end up bowing to him.
Yeah.
It upsets Joseph that they are afraid of him.
A José le molesta que le tengan miedo.
Again, we see here that Joseph tells them that God had brought all of this about for good, even though they had ill motives.
Nuevamente vemos aquí que José les dice que Dios había hecho todo esto para bien a pesar de que tenían malos motivos.
Joseph, we are told, takes care of them.
Se nos dice que José los cuida.
Verses 22 through 26.
Verso 22 al 26.
And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the 3rd generation. The children of Micah, the son of Manasseh, were brought up upon Joseph's knees. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I die, and God will surely visit you, and bring you out of this land unto the land which he sware to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
Verso 22 al 26. Y habitó José en Egipto, él y la casa de su padre, y vivió José 110 años. Y vio José los hijos de Efraín hasta la 3ª generación, también los hijos de Maquir, hijo de Manasés, fueron criados sobre las rodillas de José. Y José dijo a sus hermanos, yo voy a morir, mas Dios ciertamente os visitará y os hará subir de esta tierra, la tierra que juró a Abraham, a Isaac y a Jacob. E hizo jurar José a los hijos de Israel, diciendo, Dios ciertamente os visitará y haréis llevar de aquí mis huesos. Y murió José a la edad de 110 años, y lo embalsamaron y fue puesto un ataúd en Egipto.
Joseph makes his family promise that they will carry his body with them when they depart from Egypt.
José hace prometer a su familia que llevarán su cuerpo con ellos cuando salgan de Egipto.
He is prophesying that they will leave Egypt.
Profetiza que saldrán de Egipto.
Remember, God, in his blessings and promises, has already made clear that he will deliver them from Egypt.
Recuerde, Dios en sus bendiciones y promesas ya ha dejado claro que los librará de Egipto.
And he points that out in verse 24.
Dice en el verso 20.
24.
Oh, 24, oh,
Yeah.
24, verso 24.
We're not going to read it, brother.
Okay.
Just for everybody to know that Joseph actually tells them about the promises. Joseph dies and is embalmed.
José muere y es embalsamado.
He lived 110 years.
Vivió 110 años.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta o comentario?
Bill?
I'm kind of curious. How long does it take to embalm somebody out? What day?
Oh, they do it overnight or in a few minutes. They, I don't want to get too graphic, and I'm not an expert on embalming, but basically they drain the blood out of you and pump formaldehyde, I guess, or whatever they put in. I think it's formaldehyde or some mixture thereof. I don't know. I'm no expert on it, but essentially they're replacing that the blood with some kind of preserving fluid, we'll say. As far as I know, that's what they do. But you'd have to go talk to someone who does that to know much about it or know as much, but that's my understanding of it. But it doesn't take long,
Say a few minutes.
I guess. A few minutes, an hour, however long it takes to do that process. But then they did a lot different. And I don't want to get too graphic about what they did. You can read about it, but and it varied depending on your status, how much money your family had, what you wanted to spend. Uh, I think it was Smith's Bible Dictionary was pointing out that when the loved one passed away, they basically brought you in and showed you three setups of what you could have. You could have them look kind of like this, I guess. Maybe they had some actual bodies there, and here we'll do this, and it costs so much money, and this, and then you decided, and you gave, and then you left the body there, and they did the process. As I was trying to express that, it actually, for the most, it would take 70, I think, up to 70 days to actually do, which is interesting because in chapter 50 here, he mentions two days or two amounts of time. He says 40 days, um, verse 3, versiculo 3, and 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 60 and 10 days, which is 70 days. So it seems like the 40 days is how much time they took to embalm him. And then they mourned for him 70 days. But I'm not completely sure. But again, it would depend on exactly what process they were using or doing. Um,
But that 40 days, the Israelites passed on one. Because when Mary
What?
died, they, won 40 days.
okay, maybe so.
That could have been that.
It may be. Well, they specifically here says for 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Israelites didn't embalm; the Egyptians did. Um,
No, but the Israelites had set 40 days at the time of mourning.
well, I understand what you're saying, Jim. I'm just saying the way that the King James is worded here, and I don't know, you've got the New King James. How does it word? The way it sounds like that's how long it took for the embalming. That's the way that the King James is worded. That it sounds like 40 days. I'm not disputing what you guys are saying about the length of time that the Israelites would do. I'm just saying the way the King James worded. You got the New King James, right? How's it worded? Verse 3.
40 days were required for the, such are the days required for those that are embalmed.
See what I'm saying? If you just read that portion, it sounds like the 40 days is related to the embalming, not the Israelites' practice. Again, I'm not disputing that they had that custom. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying the way
And
it's
the
worked.
Egyptians mourned for him 70 days,
And then they mourned for him for 70 days,
another month.
which the 70 days, again, corresponds to the maximum length of the embalming. So I'd have to go back and try to look at the Hebrew to see how the Hebrew is worded on that. But I will say, as far as the embalming, again, I don't want to go into great detail, but essentially they pickled the body. Um, but it was a kind of a, again, read Smith's Bible Dictionary. It gives a description of it, and it's very graphic on what they do. Bill, did you have your hand up again? Okay. Steve, did you have any more comments, or Jim?
Question,
Sure.
verse 5.
Versiculo 5.
Behold, I am dying, and my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan, there you shall bury me. Abraham bought
Mm-hmm.
Machpelah.
the way he words it here doesn't matter.
I'm curious as to, and going on into verse 13, it references Machpelah. So did Joseph enlarge a chamber there, or?
Well, if you go back up to chapter 49 and you read the charge there, verses 29 and following, capítulo 49 y versículos 29 adelante. If you read through there, he mentions there that cave. So I'm not sure I have an exact answer as to whether he necessarily extended it out or if that's just the way that it's spoken of here. Because it does sound like he's talking about digging a cave, digging a burial place, but in fact he's buried. There were Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and then he buried Leah there.
Sounds like he might just enlarge a specific area for himself or something like that.
It's possible, I suppose, although, and I've seen some videos. You can go online and see some videos where they talk about it. And I think, John, you had some stuff you had sent me as well one time about the Jewish caves, or that they would bury them in, and the process they would use. So I'm not really an expert on that as far as it goes. It could be just the way that it's being worded here. That he is definitely referencing that cave. Mm-hmm. So whether there was a digging, widening the cave out or what, Steve? You say something?
Oh. It's just referencing he has a spot there for him, basically.
Well, again, he does mention the cave, but again, if you read there in verse 5, he talks about the grave he dug, for himself. So there may have been some expanding of the cave because they did bury in tombs, basically, that they would dig into rocks or into the side of the mountain or into the whatever, and make chambers like that. Steve, were you trying to say something? No. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. Well, we've gone through the 50 chapters of Genesis. As I said, we're going to go back, and what we're going to do at least the next 2 weeks, there's a couple of things I want to look at. Maybe we go 3. What we're going to do is we're going to go through. We're not going to be any particular chapter, but we're going to look at some specific topics. It's my intent probably next week, so you can be looking at this, because I'm pretty sure this is kind of the order I'm going to go. Next week we're going to be looking at the covenants that we find here in the book of Genesis and relating that to us today. So there's obviously various covenants that you see there. You can go back to what? The flood. You can see a covenant there. Even you can look there in Genesis 2, in a sense, with the discussion there with God and Adam and Eve as well there in the garden. You can see the flood. You can see the covenant that was given to Abraham and then repeated to Isaac and Jacob. So be looking at those and studying those, because again, I want to go back and touch on those and really deal with those and then relate them to us today, because we need to understand that it's easy to look at this book and say, well, this is all events that took place thousands of years ago, and it doesn't mean anything to me. It's nice stories, nice events. You read about Noah and the flood, you read about creation. Those are interesting if you like history, but we may think, well, what do they have to do with me? But we're going to see that. And then the next week, we're going to be looking, kind of building on that, looking specifically at Christ as brought out. I saw a lesson from Brother Kevin Rhodes who actually used to preach here, but I saw a lesson where in that lesson, he talks about that very fact and just brings out some interesting points. And so I'm not necessarily going to try to repeat word for word what he brought out, but I thought he had some very good points to discuss, and so we're going to look at some of that as well 2 weeks from now. But we're going to go ahead and break real quick.